Brian Jones returned last week from his Australian-American exploits with innumerable albums by Ravi Shankar. He explained his late arrival some 4 days after the other Stones as being due to the fact that clubs in New York open 24 hours a day, and he had been in one for days with an insane Welsh harpist called Hari Hari waiting for it to close. On arrival at his Earl's Court Mews house, Brian found he had misplaced his keys somewhere between Sydney and New York and opened the happy home by the simple expedient of putting his fist through the first-floor window. When I called some 2 hours later, I found the front room had been officially declared a major disaster area, largely due to the Welcome Home Brian Jones Committee. This comprised Spencer Davis, seated beneath a standard lamp wearing Brian's newly acquired rose-tinted spectacles, and Stevie Winwood in green Stetson, listening to an LP by the Freedom Highway Singers recorded live in Chicago's Nazareth Church, while beating time on an Indian drum. Also present were Dave, the Spencer's road manager, making himself quietly ill on a mixture of brandy and beer, and Tom Keylock, the Stones' Davis all-purpose chauffeur, drinking bitter from a pudding bowl. "This is the kind of welcome home I like," Brian said, surveying the festivities with delight. "Let me show you one of the things I brought back from the States," he added. A wooden zither-like instrument was produced which proved to be a dulcimer. Brian revealed that it had been included on several of the tracks they recorded in Los Angeles. "He has lacerated his fingers playing the strings with his fingers, although my dictionary states the instrument should be played with hammers. America is a great scene for us at present," Brian said. "We've never been so powerful there. I think we've reached a peak in Britain, but things are still opening up for us in the States. We overtook the Beatles' Nowhere Man in the charts with 19th Nervous Breakdown, and although I've no delusions about being bigger than the Beatles, Nowhere Man isn't really a single, it's something of an achievement." The possibility of the Rolling Stones becoming a bigger attraction than the Beatles in America is intriguing, and I asked Brian how he saw the shape of things to come. "You must understand the Beatles are a phenomenon. We've probably overtaken their record in the charts because we're doing more personal exposure out there at present. You can't be as big as the Beatles until you've done something like Shea Stadium, and I doubt whether even they could do that so successfully again. There's one interesting development in the US which does not exist for us here anymore. That is, we've built up a type of intellectual following among the hippies. The Greenwich Village crowd all dig us. There was a terrible scene out there just before I left. The police were stopping and searching everyone on sight. Looking for drugs, I suppose. It was frightening. Worse than a police state." With the Rolling Stones and the Beatles all but dominating the US pop business, I asked Brian how it was possible to reconcile this British attitude when a disc like The Ballad of the Green Berets had just made the top in America. "I can't believe that Stones and Beatles fans buy this kind of rubbish," Brian said. "That type of thing must be commissioned by the US government. It's not played in the clubs over there, it must appeal to the older, wider market. I can understand it in a way. Look at what Ken Dodd's Tears did over here." At this point there was a slight pause while Stevie took down a hunting horn from the wall, and after a few budgie-like noises, he produced an excruciatingly painful version of Come to the Cookhouse Doorboys. "Alan Price is the only person who can play that," Brian said admonishingly, but took the hint and proceeded to dial a meal by ordering lunches from a nearby mobile restaurant over the phone. "What do you think of our new single?" Spencer asked, suddenly tearing himself from some pictures of Shirley Anfield in Playboy magazine. Brian said it was very good and should make #1. Spence picked up a few of the Ravi Shankar albums which were scattered about the floor. Brian produced a monstrous great red mahogany sitar from the corner of the room, stood it on one end and appeared to be going to climb it. He was, in fact, tuning the instrument. "I met this fantastic Welsh harp player in New York," he said, apparently reminded of the incident by the Indian version. "He's about 60, completely bald and marvelously insane. Just to prove that Hari Hari was not a figment of his imagination, he got out an American LP and played a selection of harp improvisations by the Welshman teamed with modern jazzman Vic Feldman. It's going to be the big thing this year," Brian affirmed. Spencer agreed with the supposition and helped himself to another lager. Brian obligingly offered to show us some Australian money. "It's got kangaroos and boomerangs all over it," he said. But we were to be denied this. The glazier arrived to replace the window, and the man from the restaurant also appeared with 3 beef curries and 3 veal escallops. The rest of the afternoon was spent exchanging comments with the glazier regarding the relative merits of Earl's Court and the track on a Bob Dylan LP where he breaks into hysterical laughter and has to begin again. 2 lagers and a veal escallop later, I took my leave, bidding Mr. Jones a good day at the door of the house. Yes, Brian agreed, blinking bemusedly at the slate-gray sky. Tell me, he asked curiously. What day is it?